Well, in keeping with our theme, thanks, Nick. In keeping with our theme for Unstoppable, we're going through living a committed life. Because living a committed life is the way that we are able to live authentically. When we are living a committed life, we are showing up as our authentic self. And I'm going to share this again. I share this a lot. But this is how we know we're in our authentic self or our divine self. That we can say, I know who I am. We are the universe expressing as us. We are the activity of God walking around in this world. The Christ consciousness expressing. Okay, so I know who I am. The divine expressing as me. Let's say that together. I know who I am. The divine expressing as me. Okay? Then we know what we are. Okay, I know what I am. We're the demonstrator of that. We are the doer of that. We make those choices that honor the divine within us and within all, right? We recognize all of life is sacred because God is all things. And that doesn't leave out anything. And if God is all things, that means all is sacred, including ourselves. So when we know what we are, we demonstrate that by showing up to life as the sacred being that we are. Let's say that together. I know what I am, the demonstrator of that. Okay, let's say it again. I know what I am, the demonstrator of that. Okay, then we'll know how we serve. When we know who we are and what we are, then we know how we serve. We stand in our truth of seeing all of life as sacred, right? And then we demonstrate the truth by making choices that honor the divine in all. And we witness the truth, even in people we think are maybe not choosing to honor the divine, but we remember it for them. We remember the light is present in all things. Let's say that together now. I know how I serve. I stand in my truth. I demonstrate the truth. I witness the truth. Okay, so we're going to shorten this now. We're just going to say, I know who I am. I know what I am. I know how I serve. Let's say it together. I know who I am. I know what I am. I know how I serve. Okay? Now, when we remember this about ourselves, our authentic selves, we show up in our lives in a bigger and bolder way. And I don't mean big and bold, like we walk through that door and we're like, hey, here I am, everybody. We don't have to be the loudest person in the room to show up in our lives in a big, bold way. What we are doing when we show up in our lives in a big, bold way is we decide not to give up on ourselves, right? When we've been inspired by something, but it seems big and we know the only way to get through it is faith, but like, how could I possibly do that? Our bigger, bolder self acting in faith, we're never going to give up on ourselves. Okay? I don't give up on myself. Let's say that together. I don't give up on myself. I keep my promises to myself and others. Most of us are pretty good about keeping our promises to other people, but we don't always keep our promises to ourselves, right? Sometimes we stop believing in ourselves, we give up on ourselves, and maybe we promise to show up in a certain way. Maybe we promise to live a little healthier, but then it's like gets so hard, and so we give up. We don't keep that promise. But our bigger, bolder version of ourselves, we keep our promises to ourselves and others. So let's say that one together. I keep my promises to myself and others. Okay, then my choices align with what I want to create. So we make choices to take us toward what we want to create in our life. So if we don't give up on ourselves and we keep our promises, then we'll go ahead and make those choices that take us toward what we want to create. Like, for example, if we want to be healthier, we make choices that take us toward that health, that create the health within us step by step. So let's say that one together. My choices align with what I want to create. Then we will see all of life as sacred, including ourselves, right? Because we're remembering God is all things, God's everywhere present. There's no place that God is not. So let's say that one together. I see all of life as sacred, including myself. All right, then the last way that we can show up, although there's a lot of ways I'm sure you could show up, but we stay true to our vision even when things are hard. We don't settle for a lesser version of the thing we want to create because we're not giving up on ourselves. We're keeping our promises to ourselves. Our choices are aligning with us with what it is we want to create. We see all of life as sacred. And the thing about seeing all of life as sacred, it's not just seeing God in all things. It's not just remembering God is in all things. It's remembering that God can show up in all things. And a solution could literally come from an infinite resources in our lives. Right, so solutions to what we need, even when things are hard, are always available to us. Okay, so let's say the last one together. I stay true to my vision even when things are hard. And maybe it should be especially when things are hard. Okay, especially when things are hard. So to do all this, I don't want to go there yet. To do all this, we do have to live in faith. We have to live in faith. Because to do all of this, we're stepping out of a comfortable territory. We're stepping out of what we already know how to do very easily. Okay, so we have to live in faith. We have to rely on those higher forces. We have to rely on the direction of God to move us to that next level in our life. So when I talk about commitment, you can understand that I'm not talking about making a simple decision like, I'm committed to getting my house all swept up today, or I'm committed to getting laundry done, right? Those are decisions. We don't need faith to get our laundry done, right? We don't need faith to pick up a broom and sweep a messy room, okay? So those are just things we're doing. So when we are living a committed life, we are saying yes to our sacred mission, to live life as the sacred being that we came here to be. Relying on God, listening and acting when God speaks. So, our soul is designed for this, right? Our soul is designed to call forth greater things. Yeshua said, all these things I do, you will do and more. All these things I do, you will do and more. Greater things you will do. And so this is our soul's purpose, to do these greater things, to call forth this expansive creative energy through us into our life, because this is the way that God knows itself more deeply and through greater and greater experiences. In the Science of Mind textbook, love is defined as the force giving itself to its creations to keep creating through its creations. And so we are created, each of us are one of those creations, but it, through inspiration, continues to create through us when we listen and we act when God speaks. So this is why commitment is an act of courage. It is an act of integrity, because we are pledging to show up as our bigger, bolder self every day. That's what we are pledging to do. To show up as the sacred being that we are. So our commitment, then, living a committed life, is really just about choosing to live in faith. That's what it is, just choosing to live in faith. And then living in faith becomes the context of our life. We get used to living in faith, and so we automatically choose to live in faith. The more we practice living in faith, the more that we show up that way. Because if we're going to keep calling greater things through us, if we're going to keep expanding our territory, we have to live in faith to be able to do that next thing. Because when we're expanding our territory, when we're calling forth greater things, it's different, it's new, it's more expansive. We haven't done it before. That's why Yeshua said, these things that I do, you will do, and greater, meaning you have no idea what you're going to be doing. You have no idea. You're going to need to rely on God every step of the way. You're just going to have to. You're just going to have to. God doesn't qualify. God doesn't call the qualified. God qualifies the called. If we're qualified, we already know it all. We're not acting in faith, right? We want to be on the verge of being pretty nervous, maybe a little scared. And that's how we know, okay, whoa, this is something bigger than what I know how to do. I have to act in faith. So today, I want to talk about the things that we can do to create a committed life, right? Just a couple of simple things so we can show up as our authentic self and embody faith, listen and act when God speaks. So the first thing that we can do is we connect to spirit. We make connecting to spirit, however that feels good for you, however it feels like you are making a connection or aligning more deeply. We do this all the time, every day. You know, we get up in the morning, and most of us, I think all of us have some kind of morning routine, right? My morning routine looks a little bit like drinking some water, taking my puppy outside, although actually she's the first thing that happens in the morning, so I take the puppy out. Then I drink some water, and then there's a couple, other things that I do. We all have some kind of routine so we can walk out the front door, right? We get our body ready to go out into our lives. But there are a lot of moving parts in this universe. There are a lot of moving parts in our life. If we are not connecting to the divine within us, we can end up going out into life and feeling really overwhelmed. And the more overwhelmed we feel, the more we're going to be focusing on the problems that overwhelm us, and we're going to feel like there's a greater distance between us and spirit within. So we want to make connecting to spirit a priority. If somebody decides, like I have a water routine that I drink at least 10 of the small bottles of water a day. That's my goal, which means I consciously have to think about this and do this throughout the day. So as somebody, like, I don't know, maybe you have a water drinking goal, or maybe you have some other kind of goal. But as we are doing that for our body, we have to also do it for our mind. And so I've set up a routine for myself where I am consciously, like, throughout the day, making sure I connect with the divine within me. Like, I like water as a reminder because you can bless your water. And you can send like beautiful vibrations into your water, loving and blessing right into your water. And then you drink that up. You drink it right up. So what we're doing is we're preparing our mind and our heart. That becomes just as important as preparing our body to walk out the front door. Some things you can do is maybe you could write affirmative prayer. I have a journal now that's just a prayer journal. And I do my affirmative prayer, which is it's basically you're writing as if it's already true, right? You're writing as if things are moving. My life is busy and moving forward right now, and things are very exciting and fun are happening. So you can write affirmative prayer. But in my prayer journal, I also ask for things. I ask for guidance. I ask for support. I ask for clarity. Like if there's a place in my life that I'm not quite getting it, where I feel stuck, I will write in my journal. I will ask for clarity on that. Okay, something else you can do. Of course, meditation is a beautiful way to connect. I like to also do denials and affirmation. And a denial, it's not denying a problem in your life. A denial is denying that problem has any power over how you show up. Okay, so like a denial might look like, I don't like this thing happening in my world. My backyard is full of gophers. My backyard is literally full of gophers. And it's like walking through a tiny Grand Canyon when you go back there. And I could gripe about it, but I don't want to have to switch my bracelet. So, complaint free. But like affirmative prayer, like when I'm walking out there and I'm sinking, into a sinkhole, it can't control how I show up. I could like go on a complaining rant, but my denial would be, we're going to get this figured out. Either we're moving or we're calling a gopher guy, right? But we'll get this figured out. It can't control whether I show up in faith or not. Those gophers cannot decide if I'm going to start complaining. They don't have that much power. They have no power over me. But see, sometimes we think something has a lot of power over us. All right, my government, the government's trying to make me do this, and so I can't be happy until it changes. The government cannot tell us how we show up in our own lives. It can't dictate that. Every day, we get to choose. That is our superpower, is choice. We get to choose to show up in faith. We get to choose to align with the divine within us, to make us solution-oriented. So if there's something going on, we can either change it. If we can't change it, we rise above it, right? We do one of those things. We change it or we rise above it. So denials and affirmations are a wonderful way to keep connecting all day long to that source energy that is at work in each and every one of us. And this helps us to live and act in faith. This reminds us, live and act in faith, that that power that creates worlds is at work in each of us. And it's ready to do the work in our lives too. Okay, then that helps us go into our day prepared to do greater things. That's what we're here for, to do greater things. We decide to live a committed life, we're committing to doing greater things. That's what we're doing. Now, when I talk about greater things, I don't mean something so huge you have to quit your job and start doing it. Greater things is not about like if we have to quit our job so that we can do it. Greater things is about showing up as our authentic self, right? Honoring ourselves, believing in ourselves, not doubting what works through us, and in faith, listening and acting when God speaks. Now, for this, I really love this quote from Howard Thurman. Don't ask yourself what the world needs. Ask yourself what makes you come alive and go do that. Because what the world needs is people who have come alive. We come alive when we act on inspiration, right? Inspiration that's from the universe, that's from God, right? And when we listen and act on that inspiration, we come alive. And have you ever noticed when you get inspired to do something, the next thing that happens is you get really curious about that. You get curious. And as we are acting, as we're listening and acting in faith, and we're curious about that inspiration, doors start opening for us. Like there are new opportunities. There are things that are guiding us forward to do this next thing. So doing greater things, it's not about how big something is or how important something is or the impact that something would have. It's just about feeling alive. And I got to meet a beekeeper about a month and a half ago. Well, you were there. It was a Chamber of Commerce meeting. But this beekeeper talked about how he got started. And he was a kid. He was a kid, and there were these bees in this wall in an apartment building, and he called up like another beekeeper or beekeeper supply place in LA, and he learned, he talked to somebody who taught him how to gather up the bees and make a hive of his own, right? When he was a youngster, like he was a kid when he did this. And now he's like the hugest beekeeper in the Inland Empire. Like he has so many bees, I don't know, like it goes past 1 billion bees, I think, right? But he's got just thousands upon thousands of hives. He was curious. It started off as curious, started with one beehive. But there are a lot of things that people feel alive when they think about it. You know, I know somebody who, she just likes to keep learning culinary skills. That's like, since I've known her for like 20 years, she just keeps taking culinary classes and preparing food for her family and her friends. That makes her feel alive. When she's in the kitchen and she is cooking, she feels alive. I know people who feel alive when they are doing woodworking. That makes them come alive, right? Some of us come alive when we're just out in nature. You know, there are all kinds of things that make us come alive. So we want to figure out what that is. What is it that makes you come alive? I even wrote that question on our whiteboard. So after service, I want you to think about it and write on our whiteboard, what makes you come alive? So that's about being inspired. Whatever makes you come alive, that's what your soul's guiding you to do. That's why you feel alive when you think about it. That's why you don't feel excited about everything, right, on the planet. That's why some things you feel like it makes you come alive, but maybe your friends don't care for that, right? We are being specifically inspired by our own soul, like whatever it is that makes us feel alive. Now, when we are inspired, we are receiving direction from the universe. The aliveness comes when we act on that inspiration. When we act on that inspiration, we start feeling fulfillment. When we start feeling fulfillment, that leads to blessing the people around us. When we are fulfilled because we've done something that makes us come alive, we are blessing the people around us. Now, if we do not listen, if we decide, well, who am I to do that? We're not acting on inspiration. We're not receiving that divine energy that gives us the momentum. And we're not going to feel fulfillment. If we're choosing to not do the thing that makes us come alive because we just don't believe it, we'll start feeling dissatisfaction in our life. We're not going to have fulfillment. We will feel dissatisfaction, which means we might feel negative, right? We might feel cynical or pessimistic, which means we're not blessing the people around us. We're not blessing the people around us. Instead, we're adding kind of a negative energy when we don't act on the things that make us come alive. So we are all creating a thriving world every time we act on something that makes us come alive. Okay, whatever it is. Remember, it doesn't have to be gigantic. Okay, it can be a small thing. It could be a very small thing. I think of that one beekeeper who started with his first beehive in just like a wooden box, that he got from an apartment building, right? That made him come alive. So what we're doing when we are acting on what makes us come alive, what we're doing is we are enfolding a dream into our life right where we are. Now, the more that we do things that make us come alive, the more that our life has to expand to make room. Now, this is also a reason that we need to listen and act in faith, why we need to listen and act when God speaks, because we cannot expand our own life doing what we already know. We can't do the familiar, the easy, the comfort zone stuff, the stuff we can do on autopilot. We cannot expand our life on our own. That power that creates worlds will go to work through us when we act in faith, and that is what expands our territory, what expands our life, expands the things that make us come alive. So we're connecting with Spirit, first of all, to remind ourselves that we are here to do greater things. And then next, we want to keep remembering what our soul's purpose is. Because our soul's purpose, simplified, could be to call forth the glory of God. That's our soul's purpose, to call forth the glory of God. What is the glory of God? It's doing greater things. It's being inspired. It's doing those things that make us come alive, so that this activity brings fulfillment into our lives, so we are blessing the people around us, right? It's not about it's not about what we do, it's about how we show up to our life, how we do what we do. This is from Romans 8:28. And we know that for those who love God, all things work together for good, for those who are called according to his purpose. Those who love God, this is not really about affection. We know affection changes, right? We've all loved a person and then changed our minds, or we've all not loved a person and then we start loving them, right? So it's not about affection. It's about having faith. It's about remembering this force at work through us all the time, right? Loving God is putting our attention on God. Loving God is putting our attention on God, and that it can do all things through us, right? It can do anything. Anything is possible to those who believe, okay? And so that's loving God, is to continue to put our focus on that. And then all things, when we do that, then all things work together for good. When we are listening and acting in faith, the universe starts moving things in our favor. Okay? Hear that one more time. When we are acting in faith, the universe, the allness, right, the infinite source working through all things, it's not making us do it. It starts moving things in our favor. All we have to do is listen and act in faith. That's all. That's all we got to do. God's purpose, okay, according to his purpose, God's purpose is simply to know itself more deeply through its creations, to keep making itself, to keep giving of itself freely through all of us, through everything that it's created. It keeps giving itself freely, so we are doing greater things. Because as we're expressing God in our life, God's big. God's a big force, right? God is bigger than anything in its way. So we let God expand our life. We learn to do this in freedom and in faith. And pretty soon we're doing things. We may be nervous. We may be a little scared. But the worry and the doubt aren't going to be there, right? That doubt, that anxiety, because we're full of that faith. So doing greater things is God's plan for us. We are here to serve the world. We are here to serve that force that's at work through us, for us, as us. So we start by connecting with Spirit, and then that helps us to live and act in faith. So it's preparing us to do the greater things, and then we want to remember our soul's purpose as we are doing this. So our call to action this week, first of all, here is our affirmation. And we're going to do this again. We've already had a little practice. I know it's a little long, but it's a really great affirmation. So let's say it together. I know who I am. I know what I am. I know how I serve. I am free. I am free. I am free. Now, the I am free part, this is really important, because when we are listening and acting in faith, and we remember this about ourselves, and I'm going to share this one more time. When we remember our divine identity, we are free, because there's no obstacle that could stop us, right? Remember, God is bigger than anything in its way. So there's no obstacle that has power over us, power over how we show up in the world. There's no obstacle in our path that can decide to make us not remember this. We get to choose to remember this. That's on us. We get to choose that. And no obstacle can keep us from doing that once we make that choice. Okay, so our affirmation again. Let's say it again one more time. I know who I am. I know what I am. I know how I serve. I am free. I am free. I am free. I see a little typo there just now. That's okay. I found this quote, and I had to say it over and over again, okay? But you have to say this quote just like this. Something unknown is doing, we don't know what. You have to say it like that. Something unknown is doing, we don't know what. Because we don't know what. We don't know. There's so many moving parts in this universe, in the allness. We don't know. We just have no idea. Things are unfolding through us and for us in our lives a little bit at a time. So we get clued in along the way. We get qualified along the way. But we just never know what's actually going on. Right? Because there's so many things working underneath the scenes and behind the scenes, right? The universe is moving things together for us, for our benefit, but the universe, God, is also moving things into place for other people at the same time. And then we just never know when our path is going to connect with somebody else's path, right? The universe moves things together. There are just so many things at work, and all of this, the we don't know what. Those are things that are happening on our behalf, right? Something unknown is doing things that I don't know about that are on my behalf. That soon I'll see the benefit. Soon I'll start recognizing that. Okay, but for now, it's like we just don't know. And it's okay. It's okay. There is an evolution of consciousness that is happening. I know I mention this a lot, but there is an evolution of consciousness happening. We're all feeling it. There are things that are changing. Now imagine this. When we are doing what makes us come alive, we are supporting the evolution of consciousness. We are supporting that new growth that is happening, right? Because we're not actually here to build a new world. Because building is about, when we build something, we have a blueprint or we have a diagram, we have instructions that unfold, right? We build something, we control it. We control it. But we're not in control right now. What we are doing is we are birthing a new world. We're birthing a new world. Now, there are people that are focused on building a new world and putting systems into place to try to control everything. But see, when we birth a new world, what we're doing is we're bringing into existence something that unfolds in our life, something we serve. Building a new world, we control. Birthing a new world, we serve. Right? I don't know. It's like the caterpillar. The caterpillar does not build itself into a butterfly. It doesn't run to the caterpillar or the butterfly store and buy wings and just strap in those, elastic things. It can't do that. The caterpillar creates a cocoon, and inside that cocoon, you don't even want to know what's going on because it turns into butterfly sauce, right? There's nothing in there that you would ever recognize as anything. You're not going to recognize it. But it has to take the time it needs to form, and then what happens? It unfolds. It's birthed out of that cocoon on its time. On its time. You can't rip it open. You would destroy the creature in there. Its time. It unfolds right out of that cocoon. So we are here to birth a new world. And this is actually really good news because we don't have to control what's happening. We don't have to control it. We serve it. We serve this new unfolding world. So think about coming alive again and what one person can do. In my household, until yesterday, there were 6 of us living in this house. The kids have moved out now into their own place. But so until yesterday, there were 6 of us living in this house, 2 dogs. Okay, 2 dogs. My daughter has a golden retriever. Every morning, like when we're all asleep, it's 3 or 4 in the morning, everything is very quiet. All it takes is my daughter's golden retriever to walk down the hallway. That's all it takes. I don't hear it. But my puppy Lilu hears it. Then Lilu's awake, and she wakes me up. I wake up my husband. We're going outside. Now Lilu is awake and wants everybody in the house awake, and she starts barking. So everybody hears this barking. All it took was Comet, our golden. All it took was one dog walking down the hallway. That's all it took. Now, in our own lives, as we are unfolding a new world, all it takes is one of us to come alive doing what we're doing. Now, in my household, usually my mom and if Adam didn't have to be up right away, they would go back to sleep. They would. They could go back to sleep. Now, in our own lives, doing what makes us come alive, there may be people who notice and go back to sleep, and that's okay. But what if one other person comes alive because they saw how excited and enthusiastic we were about what we were doing? Right? And then they are coming alive, and then who are they affecting? Right? Remember, when we come alive, we bless those around us. So when somebody else comes alive, they bless those around us. So it only takes one. It just takes one. Right? Just live doing what makes us come alive. So that's what we're here to do in this life. We are not here to be in a bubble and just be creating so we can say, oh, look at me, I did this. We're not here to be in a bubble. We are here to serve life. I'm serving life on planet Earth. That's actually a good thing. It's actually a good thing. It is a privilege for us to be here now. It is the biggest privilege of our lives to be here now. So as we're connecting to Spirit, as we are doing these greater things, as we are remembering our soul's purpose, that our soul's purpose is actually to do this. Our soul's purpose is to come alive, to do these greater things. Doing greater things, doing greater things. Because that's how we are creating heaven on earth. So until next time, remember, you are divinely designed to be doing all of this. In everything you do, you are blessed, and so it is.